So today we're going to be looking at 2024-2025 performance, making sure you have the right tech stack to get the best performance that you can out of your vacation rental management company, and payment trends and strategies, looking at e-commerce trends, fraud check, and payouts. Also, we're going to be following the trends for revenue management, owner acquisition and retention, and guest experience. We want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered since we do have a full lineup on this presentation today and panel. So make sure you put your questions in the Q&A. The chat will just be disabled, so we won't see any questions posted in there. But if you do click that More button on your Zoom bar, you will see an option for Q&A, and throw your questions out there and we'll get to them as soon as we can at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over to Tim, and he'll be able to kick off our discussion.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. So we're going to go in a little bit here. We're going to talk about some performance of what we saw for 2024 and dive a little bit into that and then talk about 2025 and kind of the strategies. So for 2024, most of you probably saw the same kind of revenue as 2023 or maybe a little bit of an increase. That seems to be, kind of a modest increase. That seems to be the norm for most clients. Some may not be there, some may be above that. There's obviously some nuances for different markets or different companies. But the general feel, rates stayed the same. Like pretty much whatever somebody charged in 2023, it seemed to be they stayed with those rates for 2024. If anything, there was maybe a slight up or down in a few markets, but it was pretty much there. The awesome thing from 2024 was the occupancy's up, and we're going to see that in the chart on the next screen. The other trend we're starting to see, especially those few years with COVID where it was just a boom, in 2024, we started to see some of that inventory start to leave the market a little bit. The ones that just should have never been a rental or just weren't performing or just, they just decided that my money's not in this. And I think that's helped the market some. So 2025 is really looking to be kind of an extension of the same thing, kind of, going into that. We are ahead of where we were on occupancy for 2025, ahead of where we were at this time for 2024 last year. Rates still, everybody seems to be keeping the rates pretty much the same. Your revenue is probably going to be similar again. There is some opportunity for modest increases or even some more advanced increases, depending how aggressive you want to get. And some of that's we're going to go ahead and get into with the next few slides here. So I mentioned some of the numbers. This is 2024. The solid bars here are the average daily rate. You can see for each month of the year, January through December, you can see that the kind of the patterned orange is some months slightly ahead, slightly behind, but you can see that even balance there. The occupancy and the curved lines on that. The darker blue one is 2024. The lighter blue is 2023. You can see in the beginning of the year we started a little bit behind, and even at the end of the year it's a little bit off. But in the middle of the year there we were running on average and as an industry 5 to 10% above last year. Because of the inventory change, obviously that increased some of the revenue per units. And an interesting one that is kind of one to look at, and this is maybe a change for some of how people are pricing things and looking at changing their patterns, which we're going to talk a little bit, is the length of stay. Really kind of in some of the high seasons, we're seeing maybe like a 2%, 3% decrease in the number of nights people stay. That's not a lot, but that says that maybe people are starting to, open up nights that would traditionally be a week and open up other things. And then in the off season, we're actually seeing an increase in the stay. So that's really good. So go ahead and let's look at 25 now. So the rates again, like I'd mentioned a couple times, they're staying the same as 2024. Pacing, that darker blue line up through July, at this point last year, we are ahead of where we were on occupancy. That's a really strong market. That's really good. That's really exciting. I think in some places that might open opportunities to, maybe look at your rates a little bit more aggressively. I think that probably gets into the area of a sneak peek to some of the things we're going to talk about revenue management. But that's really, really positive looking for this year. Go ahead with the next one here. Then we're going to see. So the overall outlook for 2025, property managers, you're probably going to see the same revenue as long as you do the same things. If you have the same inventory, if you just want to, stand pat and go that way, that's either good news or bad news to you, depending how you look at it. It's going to be the same type of revenue. The opportunity here is that people that really want to grow, and why we're all here looking at this today, is we're seeing a few trends that have come up, that people that are really saying, I'm going to make more money this year. How am I going to do it? And we're going to kind of hit in some of these through as we go through here, and we'll come back to these at the end and talk a little bit more. But those are really revenue management, owner acquisition, and the guest experience. Those three strategies, and looking at that is where the companies that have plans to really increase their overall revenue, they're going to go after those three areas. And we can dive in more to do that. To get into that, again, part of this whole webinar is to make sure that you have the right tech. Do you have the right pieces in place to do this? Do you have what it takes to do it? You know, if you're saying I can make more money this way or that way, but I don't have the stuff to do it, that's the point of this here, is to have all of us experts here to help you, guide you in the right direction. So with that, I'm going to give it to Sarah and let her kind of dive in a little bit with what you can do with Ignite.
Hello, thanks, Tim. So when you're going ahead and you're looking at your tech stack, I kind of like to think the end of the year towards the start of a new year. It's just like your New Year's resolution. You want to do the best for yourself, and that goes also for your business. So a lot of the time when you're looking at your tech stack, you're looking at efficiency, scalability, and also how much is it satisfying your guests. So that efficiency, you want a lot of that manual work taken off. Now, not completely, because you still want to check things as you go through, but helping you to reduce that manual work really allows you to focus on your guest experience, as well as grow your business if that is something that you're looking to do. Now, growing your business, you want to make sure that whatever tech you have is going to grow. Now, whether that growth is growing your portfolio or growing your revenue, you want things in place that are going to help you accomplish those goals. That's for both small and large portfolios. And of course, your guest satisfaction. You don't want different techs in place that are making it harder for your guests to either have their booking process with you, doing their check-ins, their checkouts. At the end of the day, revenue is very important, and getting bookings in, but especially repeat bookings, is very, very important. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at kind of what you can do for your tech stack. So before we get started, have a little question, just kind of what you're currently using. Your answers can very much so vary based on your portfolio size, as well as if you are more in a seasonal market or year round, but definitely feel free to go ahead and answer that. Now, coming here, the best way that I can kind of explain it, we're in the Inhabit ecosystem. So it's more than just a PMS. You're starting with your software, you're moving on to payment processor, having that travel insurance, damage protection, things like that. If you're going to be using SEO marketing, email campaign packaging, different things like that, all the way down to having revenue management as well as data tools in place. So this just kind of showcases what Inhabit as a whole has to offer you. Now, of course, there are other tech stacks out there outside of Inhabit that you can add into this. But just to kind of show you as you're building out your own tech portfolio, how it starts to look. Now, it's again, more than just a PMS. This can vary based on the size for what type of tech stack you have. Someone who has 6 units may only just have a PMS as well as a channel manager in place. Someone with a larger portfolio may have that damage protection that they're offering, a revenue management tool, maybe an additional work order and maintenance platform. So this very much so can vary again based on your size, if you're seasonal, if you have more luxury portfolios, and part of that goes then into budget. What are you able to pay for throughout the year as you're looking at things? Someone who only has a busy season of 3 months compared to all 12 months may not be able to put in as much for their tech stack. So when you're looking at that, see what is more flexible to be able to be offered to you. Also see what you can consolidate. Sometimes your tech stacks that you're looking at, you may be paying an additional price for something that your PMS can actually do. Along with this is with consolidating, looking and keeping up to date with your different integrations. So LiveRes alone has a ton of different integrations, having again, Limbrook in place, Frontal Guardian, all the way to if you are on LiveRes Ignite specifically, you can go ahead and have additional integrations such as LSI Insights, having RevMax in place. There's a lot of different things when it comes down to it. So staying up to date with what your PMS is able to integrate into is very important. Again, not everything is set it and forget it. That goes with your tech stack. So staying up to date, Lynbrook specifically, a lot you may have seen throughout this last year talking about guest ID verification. So if you're not already utilizing that, getting information, seeing what the free version is for it, that's going to be included, all the way to more of a paid version, just fully staying up to date, which then will lead us into, one moment, evaluating those new technologies. So whether it is a new feature that a technology is offering or a fully new tech. I don't know if anyone's been attending conferences lately, but the vendor hall is filling up more and more with brand new names. So just keeping an eye on those trends. If you're not already in different LinkedIn groups or following different pages, as well as different Facebook groups for PMs just like you, just staying in the know for what's coming on the market. And again, test out, see of those new trends that you're seeing, for whether it's, again, I'm going to use RevMax as an example. RevMax being offered in Ignite specifically, there is that free version that's included. So seeing what you can get out of your PMS, what you can get out of those different companies to be able to offer is really going to help as you're looking through your either consolidating your tech stack or growing it even further, just to help you manage on the day-to-day. Lynbrook was mentioned a couple different times. So to take it off a little bit further for what you can look into for them, Matt's going to take you over.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. So a lot of people probably wonder what trends in payments, right? Like how does something as simple as processing a card change year over year? And really with the way online transactions and technology has been moving, the answer is a lot. And it kind of gets swept under the rug. Payments are really a commodity, right? You need it. You have to charge a card. It's back of mind for a lot of people, but if you put some focus on it, there's a lot you can do to help follow consumer trends and make sure you're appealing to what your consumer actually wants. So one thing that's been on the rise really over the past 6, 7, 8 years is what the industry calls digital wallets. That is your classic scan your face Apple Pay, PayPal at checkout, Venmo, things like that. We all see it on Amazon. We all see it on eBay. We all see it on Walmart.com. Almost any travel you're booking on any major OTA, you don't have to enter a credit card anymore. Any scenario where you're not entering a card but you're paying is a digital wallet. And if we look at how this graph here kind of goes over consumer demand for really how guests like to pay, or how people on online platforms like to pay. So I think about our websites. I think about what we're offering our guests at checkout. And when we're looking at where the industry has gone, you can see here the payment methods we're probably all taking right now, probably credit and debit card. And those are not the biggest things on this graph, right? That's about 32% in 2022 of all e-commerce payments were done with a credit or debit card. So we're already behind. And the bulk of the consumer demand, even a few years ago, was already literally about almost double through a digital wallet than an actual card. So your average guest buying something online, half are using a wallet. The other half are using an alternative method, and most people don't offer wallets right now. So what we've been working on the past year is trying to bring this technology into our space. We've been working with websites, we've been working with PMSs, and we've been trying to build in easy solutions for you to be able to kind of integrate in and take and display these methods at checkout. Now, I'd also note here, looking into 2026, so looking a couple years ahead, just based on the trends from 2022 to now, we're forecasting out that the use of credit cards, the use of debit cards are looking to decrease. Account to account, which is nice. It's like integrated ACH or integrated e-check. Those are things that we offer too with most websites we work with. That is going to uptick a little bit. That's great because there's no credit card fee on that. But the thing that grows the most here is the use of digital wallets. We'll go ahead into the next slide here and I'll explain a bit more. So what is it? I understand maybe not everybody on this meeting has used it. I know I use it every day. Over here on the right side of the slide, you can see a couple of the name brands out there that you're probably familiar with. But what it is in general is a more secure way for a buyer to pay for something. And that security kind of bleeds in with our industry as well. But it lets guests pay faster. It lets guests pay through a brand that they trust and understand. People have used Apple and people have used PayPal for decades at this point. So they trust it. Almost all their money goes through it. And then in the end, it lets them just click to book, right? You're at that checkout page. You're not having to pull out a card. One of my colleagues has a good scenario. He has 3 kids and 2 dogs. So if he's on his computer trying to book a vacation and his wallet is in his bedroom, for him to get up off that computer to walk to go get his wallet to get his credit card number, he's going to get stopped by 2 pets and 3 kids the whole way, and that vacation is not going to get booked. That's why people store their data on like a PayPal account or an Apple Pay account, and they just click and log in. We'll go ahead and hit next here. Now, another type of wallet that it's not the most popular yet, but it is growing, and we hear about it a lot. It's getting more and more popular with really your Gen Z and millennial market right now, and that's buy now, pay later. So what is that? It's essentially financing at checkout, but the way it's set up is actually really beneficial for you as the merchant, you as the property manager taking the booking. The vendor we chose for this is PayPal's buy now, pay later solution. Some of you are probably familiar with maybe Uplift, or I think a lot of people see Affirm because that's the vendor that Amazon uses. And then you see Klarna all over the time in shopping portals and things like that. But what it is it allows for a consumer to book, reserve a property with you, and it allows them to pay over time. The reason we chose PayPal is because they have financing options that can go and approve into the tens of thousands, while most cap out at about $2,000. Most of our stays cost more than $2,000. So most of the vendors don't fit the puzzle piece that we need. PayPal's does. So what the guests see when they're checking out, it shows their total. Let's just pretend it's $5,000. It'll show, hey, you can pay now $5,000. Here's your deposit terms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Your normal display. It also shows, hey, pay over time for X amount every month. And they can choose to go that route. For you as a property manager, it's nice because PayPal takes that liability. They take the chargeback risk at that point. They take the finance risk of following up and making sure those payments go through. And you as a property manager just get paid in full. So even if they're booking a year in advance, even if your policy say full payment's not due till 30 days prior to check-in, you get paid in full, non-refundable right away. And then PayPal takes that risk to collect. PayPal takes that chargeback risk. So it's a win-win for you, and this customer gets to pay over time. Obviously, they're paying a small bit of interest that PayPal's making money on, but it's also nice knowing that this guest generally is going to have good credit. PayPal knows a lot about its users, and they're not going to approve this for somebody with a low credit score, somebody with bad financial records. They're not even going to see the offer. And so it's really approving people that, PayPal believes are going to pay, and you're getting a guest that at least has a good credit score when you're thinking about safety, which is pretty nice too. Now, when I look at wallets and why I think in travel it's going to continue to pick up, with our beta group, I'll show you some stats on that a little bit. It really is kind of outperforming what we thought. But when you look at our travelers, the generations that are traveling the most right now are millennials and Gen Z. Our generations are taking at least 3 trips a year. With all the Vermos and trade shows, I think I'm at 15 this year. But for leisure, we'll try to fit in 3 a year. And that's really the demographic that the wallets are appealing to. I honestly don't think our Gen Z and now Gen Alpha are even going to carry a card anymore. It's all just going to be digital. And that's so as we continue to grow and these Gen Z millennial buyers become more prevalent and travel more, it's going to be easier for them and more acceptable for them to book with a wallet than a card. Now, how is this working, right? Like we hear about new payment products all the time. We hear about, people that want to come in and help take payments to your website all the time. Does it actually do anything, right? And the answer for the wallets is absolutely yes. We've started with the beta group this past year. This is about 7 months of data here across 20 users in a couple different markets. And we're seeing on each of those users that have added this has surpassed their Discover transactions, and they're closing in on their MasterCard transactions. So they're getting a lot more than you think. It's not just 1 or 2 bookings here and there. Our friends in Savannah, Georgia, 12% of their overall bookings are now through wallets. And so for them, it's nice. They don't have this really eliminates the chance of fraud. It's made click to booking faster on the website, so they're getting better conversions, and their guests are able to pay the way that they want. And when we're looking at the types of properties being booked, that's what's really interesting to me is people booking through a general wallet like PayPal or Venmo. The ADR is about 34% more than a standard credit card. It's not that your unit's not going to make 34% more because they booked through PayPal. Is that the types of guests that are booking through something like PayPal are the guests that are booking your higher end inventory. So you are making it easier and attracting and making those guests that are paying for higher ticket items feel more safe booking on an unfamiliar website when they book direct with you by letting this happen, by letting them use this source that they trust, like a PayPal. Now, the pay laters is even more interesting. They spent about 45% more on average. So the higher ticket item properties are the ones that are getting the most attention out of this, which is really interesting. And then a friend of ours has a company that does surveying, and we're able to run this across a beta group of about 10 million people in the US. Got a lot of responses. And the theory that we've had looking at the data is people feel more trust booking through a direct booking website on a name that they don't know. When they don't have to enter their credit card information, they know they're just logging in through something secure like their PayPal account, or they're scanning in their face like Apple Pay. And our theory is that they'll feel more safe doing that. This data point is looking at your Gen X and older, and 56% answered out of that survey and said that they would feel more comfortable paying through Apple Pay or PayPal on an unfamiliar website than entering a credit card. And then the next slide goes into Millennial and Gen Z. Those demographics, 70% feel more comfortable paying through Apple Pay and PayPal versus on an unfamiliar branded website. So this helps build trust in our fragmentation problem as an industry. Not everybody's brand is known unless it's a local brand that's been there for 30 years. And we want the book direct movement to succeed. All of us do. And this helps us build that trust in that movement in our consumers, which is great. Now, to sum up wallets, I think the three biggest benefits are trust with the consumers, right? We're giving them the way that they want to pay, as the data shows, and we're giving them a way that they feel safe paying. Security for you, the people that are booking, either if they're doing a finance solution, all liability is off of you, chargeback risk goes to them, collections goes to the financing party, or if they're just booking through like PayPal or Venmo, you know that this guest isn't fraudulent because they physically had to scan their face or log in and when they come through. And then thirdly, the last piece, I'm sorry, a question just came in. I lost my train of thought. So first is consumers. That's how they want to pay. They feel more safe paying. Second is security. And then the third is conversion. Every single metric. I used to work in OTAs for 8 years. And when I'm sitting here looking at Homes and Villas checkout or Airbnb checkout or Booking.com checkout, and I'm sitting on their advisory boards, every single thing I hear is how fast can I get them to that book button? How fast can I get them to that checkout button? What's faster than clicking a button that says pay and skipping all those entry form fields? You don't need to enter your first name, last name, email, address, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all stored in PayPal. They click that and it's done. So that click to book, that to capture that conversion before that and let that booking go through is a lot better. But kind of doubling down on security here, when we're looking at other methods like credit cards and things like that, we have a very unique industry with that. We have what you call a card not present industry. Almost no one on this call will physically see their guests before they show up. And fraudsters know this. So we have been rampantly hit with fraud. And there's a couple different methods out there that people are trying to build. If you look at Europe, they have secure two-factor authentication, things like that. But the only reason it exists is because the government made it happen, and that's just not going to happen here. And there's a lot of services out there that have people scan IDs and take selfies, but we see, I manage chargebacks all day. We see all the time people really good and really tricky with Photoshop on licenses these days, or people phishing and hacking emails to get access to data and downloading actual pictures of a license that people have sent before and reusing it to get to these verifications. So what we've done is we've given out and built out a free fraud prevention tool. We call it Limerick Guest ID. It's for post bookings only. So your booking flow doesn't change. If they're booking on VRBO or Booking.com or your website, whatever it is, they book, they paid, everything's normal, everything's dandy. But after they book, we put them through a simple two-factor authentication. All it is an email and a text message that goes out to that guest. They answer the email, they answer the text, and that's it. So I think all of us have probably been through that about 10 times this week, because every brand does this these days. So that your customer's familiar with it. You're not asking them to take a selfie after they get off a plane. You're not asking them to scan their licenses. Another issue with a brand that they don't trust, you're not asking them to scan their licenses. I'm sure people walk from that. It's just having them answer a text. But what's happening in the background that is more secure than loading up a picture of a license, more secure than getting a selfie, is we are pulling in their public phone records and we are verifying that every single thing on that phone record matches what's on the credit card and matches what's on the name. You can't fake that. You can Photoshop a license, you can Photoshop a selfie all day, but you can't lie about phone data and phone record. That's public. We can pull that in if they answer that text and we verify it. And we just send you a score, 0 to 1,000. 0 is a failure, 1,000 is a pass. and we rank on multiple factors. Does the name match? Does the birthday match? Is the address matching? Things like that. And it's stopped a lot of fraud here. So the reason we did this post booking is you don't have to control it. It doesn't stop any bookings coming in. And the reason we did the phone record and summary is it's seamless to the guest. This is what they see. They get an email, they enter their reservation number, they enter the last name. Let's go to the next slide here. They enter their birthday and their cell phone, and then that's it. They get that code, they enter the code, and then you get this email on the right. It's kind of hard to see on the screenshot, but in summary, it's telling you, did the name match? Did the card match? Is possession verified? Did they do it on their phone, or did they try to kind of route it through a voice over IP server or something like that? But one of the nicest things that we like about this too, that we see a lot of smart, savvy property managers using this for, is I'm capturing the birthday. So if any of you have age minimums in your contract, it's a very easy way to confirm whether you have some teenagers trying to get the unit or not, because we'll know if their birthday doesn't match on their cell phone record, and we'll tell you. Let's see. If you don't want to send that automatic email out, we don't have to. We can give you this URL. If we have it turned on our side, it'll work for your account, but you send this out with your welcome email or things like that. We can automatically send it. We usually do it automatically for last minute bookings because that's a fraud window, but you can also define automated settings around it too. Do you want it to go for units with a specific ADR? Do you want it to go for this subset of dates, that subset of dates? You want to block out certain dates? You can trigger when you want the email to go out, or you can just use this link to manually send it whenever you want.
Hey, Matt, real quick, we do have a question. Is there any use to needing to use another system to prevent fraud if you're using Lynbrook?
So to be honest, if we had a really good panel at VRMA, I think the recording's up if anybody wants to watch it, but we sat up there with not just us, but multiple other vendors that do verification. And every vendor up there said the most important thing that can't be faked is phone verification. Everybody agreed on that point. We only do the phone verification. So we say that, I think we cover it, right? We cover everything that you need to detect fraud. Now, do you want to do a sex offender check? Do you want to do a background check? Do you want to do these things? That's when those other vendors come into play. We're not doing sex offender checks. We're not doing background checks. We're not having them capture we're not sending them a form to capture their license or capture their IDs or things like that. If you want to do those things, that's where it's smart to have one of those vendors as backup. We have a lot of customers that use us, and when they get a low score, when a guest looks like they may be fraudulent, that's when they go and they pay for one of these services to go and collect additional data. Or if it's like a higher end unit, maybe they want to pay for one of these vendors just to make sure they're not on a sex offender checklist or have a felony or anything like that. This right here is like bare minimum what the long-term industry does. They have to check all these things. Us in short term, for whatever reason, we don't. It's just something the text there. But if you combine this and you use one of the ones that are checking sex offender list, things like that, you are really doubling up on safety. It just depends on the value of your units, and I'd even say by market whether you have to be that serious about it or not. But this right here will prevent the fraud. This slide I need to update because we're at officially 75,000 as of this morning reservations, and we've only had 3 fraud chargebacks on 75,000 reservations. We've caught all the others. The only reason these 3 came through, one of them we did catch. We told the property manager the verification failed in the email. They missed it, and the guest came in, stayed, left, was fraud. The other 2 are friendly fraud, where the person just didn't go what they want, and they lied and reported fraud, but we helped the property manager win both those chargebacks because we have a timestamp of the person confirming their identity prior to arrival. It's hard to claim that it was a fraudulent booking when you have confirmed your identity on your own cell phone. And so we were able to turn those 2 around. So it's been really successful, really helpful with this. So between the 2, guest ID will help prevent those frauds. I know this isn't a revenue generating thing, but this is a revenue protecting thing. If you think of how many fraud chargebacks you've lost in the past year, if I can just save one of them, this is thousands of dollars back in your pocket for a service we give out for free. And with that, I forgot about underpayments. We had to talk about underpayments, but I think maybe Sarah, did you want to go through the underpayments and Ignite?
I'll take it, Matt, and we'll touch on how easy it is to make those owner payments, and also vendor payments will be right after this when you are in your Ignite system. So anytime you do log into your owner section of your Ignite system, you will see the option that if you are synced up with Lynbrook to do those digital check payments, you will see that you have options to charge your owner or pay your owner. When you click on top of these options to either charge or pay, it is going to automatically fill in this amount in the next window. And then you can choose that that is going to be that digital check and go ahead and process that payment immediately, which is super cool, super fast, super convenient. All you have to do is within the owner profile here is make sure that you do have your payee settings under the accounting tab filled out. You need to have that payee name match as closely as possible, and also make sure that payee email address is going to be filled in there. So Matt will go over what exactly happens whenever those payments are sent out to trigger that process and get your owners to sign up. And also with your vendor payments in Ignite, it will be the same thing. You can go ahead and pay your bills right there from the vendor page in your Ignite system. You can also create bills and then pay them. And all you have to do within your vendor setting is make sure that payee name and payee email address is filled in. So it's super fast, again, super quick. So I'm going to pass it back over to Matt so he can tell you exactly how that works in the system.
So our philosophy around homeowner and vendor payouts is more modern day, modern era. There's a couple of questions that have come into that I'll answer after this one section around payments. If you look at the way the payment world is going in terms of bank connectivity, bank transfers, things like that, the micro deposit confirmation days are over. And we're trying to get more secure. The last thing that I think that we really wanted to kind of stop with this is I probably know 20 property managers off the top of my head that have a spreadsheet of all their homeowners' banking information sitting on their laptop, waiting for, you know, a hacker to come and get it or somebody to stop by when you're having a coffee at Starbucks and swipe it and get all your homeowners' banking data. Like, we can't continue to store bank information and bank transfer information and accounting routing numbers like that. So, and a lot of customers want you to pay them by check because they don't want you to have it, right? They don't want you to have that banking data. So what we've done, we've given out an API into LiveRez and they've coded to it. All we know over that API is the amount that we have to send somebody, their first name, last name, email. So LiveRez is storing first name, last name, email of your homeowner. Their accounting reporting is calculating their net payments out. When you're verifying it and you're hitting pay, we're not asking you to give me your owner's banking information. We're sending an email to your homeowner saying, hey, you have a check coming. Will you connect your bank and receive the check? And that's where they click here to deposit this link. You see a logo on the check right there that says Lynbrook. It'll actually be your logo that they see. And then when they get this, they click this check. It takes them to the next screen where they can enter they choose direct deposit here. We can kind of go through these pretty fast on the slides. There we go. They choose that they're an individual, and then they search and connect their bank account. They verify themselves with the phone number as well for security purposes, but they are kind of self-connecting this. If you set up with QuickBooks or if you've used Venmo in the past 5 years, you have done this exact process, and so have your homeowners, because Venmo makes you connect through this, QuickBooks makes you connect with this. This is the modern day of paying today. And what's nice is you as a property manager don't have to one, go manually pay people through ACH, write or cut checks, or just store this risky data anymore. It all just goes through the system. So paying out homeowners in the end, you know, if you go through LiveRez, select all payoff, you have 50 homeowners, you just pay 50 homeowners in 5 minutes. Like, it's so much faster, so much smoother, and a lot less on your system. There are a couple of questions. One of them about this on the timeline it takes for homeowners to get payouts. Ideally, it's usually 2 to 3 business days. Sometimes it can get up to 4 to 5. It just depends on the bank speed, the bank you use, the bank your homeowners use. When you're hitting pay every single night, we're sending out those batch payments, and we're telling the bank, hey, release money to this person who has this bank account. And it can take, I'd say realistically, between 2 to 5 days. I'd tell your homeowners 7 to 10, just because of weekends and holidays. They're not thinking business days when they're thinking about getting their money. And we have to think about bank holidays. We have to think about bank speeds. And this is almost like an ACH transfer. There are a couple additional security layers in place that these things go through, but it is still, they get paid within a handful of days here. We don't do any like payout holds or things like that. We just go through the age system. Makes sense. They had a question here about Stripe as well and how they compare with other payment methods from Anthony. Stripe, they are a very tech-savvy payment processor like us. When you look at levels of payment processors, we're on the same level as them in terms of rights and what we do. The main difference is we focus in your space. Stripe doesn't. We have customer support. Stripe doesn't. And we have fair pricing, and Stripe doesn't. That'd be the main difference there. And then Mark Driscoll, I'll shoot you an email to get you on guest ID. That was a question on that. But I know we're low on time. We talked about payments a lot. I think it's time to move on to the next, but I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, so we teased this at the beginning a little bit with kind of what are the trends? What are people doing, from a property manager standpoint to beat last year? How are you going to make more money this year? Or how are you going to be competitive in your market? And these were really the three trends that fit well with what you can do with Ignite, what a lot of people are doing. We mentioned revenue management. RevMax has been talked about this a few times through here. If you're not doing revenue management in any way, shape, or form, it's time to start doing it. And if you are doing it, you can maximize how you're doing it. Owner acquisition, I always like to add retention to that. It's that kind of goes without saying. And I know everybody's got a lot of different methods you do this. There's some best practices we'll get into, but it's really, if you've doing revenue management, you're nailing it on everything. Sometimes the best way to do it is just to add more inventory. And then the last one of those was the guest experience, that a little more in depth. You can go ahead. So under the revenue management, this is by no means a complete list here, but looking at your stay requirements, looking at your inventory, setting goals, looking at, maybe you've maximized your summer weeks, looking at those shoulder weeks or your high season weeks, look at those shoulder weeks. The two really key things here that I want to point out, and if anyone else has got thoughts, feel free to chime in, but like with something like RevMax, they see for the same units that next year, immediate year-over-year growth. Like someone asked a question about RevMax, I think earlier in the question answer, you are going to see, most clients see that growth right away. The other is you really need to have a dedicated resource to this, whether it's somebody on your team or getting a company like a RevMax that can look at the overall picture. Revenue management is not just automated pricing, or I have a pricing tool and it changes my rates, and I don't have to do anything. That's not revenue management. You really need to be looking at what's going on, finding those opportunities. There's a lot that can be done with this. With the strategy, and there's some great tools to make it really easy to do it. You just have to stay focused on it. The owner acquisition, obviously finding new owners, have a strategy for that. Keeping your owners, over communicate with your owners, let them know, set clear expectations. This last year we saw property managers that had I think they averaged 12% unit increase and 7% revenue growth. So the average for ones that increased units, they averaged about 12% increase and their revenue went up 7%. So I think a lot of people will be really excited about the 7% revenue growth for a year. There are some tools out there. There's some in like LSI Insights. There's some other industry tools, and this goes back to the setting expectations. Use those tools to figure out what can this unit get in the market and be honest with that owner. The owner may think I can get X amount, but the actual value may be 2/3 of that. There's some other great things in here. I think Sarah, when we were talking about this, she mentioned, having your website with a good landing area with information, trying to collect that. I know some have tied that in there. Was there something else to that, Sarah?
Yeah, making sure your website is up to date, especially if you've been in the industry for a while. Sometimes that is an area that you can kind of forget. You might be updating different photos to put on the website, but the overall look, definitely looking at your competitors, seeing who has more of a modern look, that can really help to gain appeal, especially for some newer owners who are coming into this market, just as a first, right off the bat, kind of introduction that they can see.
Yeah. Making that impression is really big. And then last on this list, which is my favorite, and you could probably talk about it all day with me, is the idea of guest experience. So to boil this down, the revenue opportunity here, traditionally in the vacation rental industry, people survived off commissions. You got 10 to 15% of the rent. Well, we've gone to the point where about 17% of the money you take in is actually going to, admin fees, extra fees, cleaning, insurance, all kinds of, gear rental, linens, whatever, early check-ins, all those different things. Now, yes, you have to pay a portion of that, but that's money you keep 100% of. That is money you can make. So the more of those you can do, it's profitable for you. Now, I lead with that, but the main point behind the guest experience, and that's from the moment they first come to your website and they first get an email to where they're at your property and somebody's saying, they check in and they see a reservationist or a maintenance guy comes by the unit, or any interaction they have, it's positive. They make it a great experience. You have the house being clean and ready for the guest, having everything go great with their thing, sharing your knowledge, letting them know what's in the area. They've probably been there before. They may have been there before. They may have looked it all up, but you know what's really worthwhile. Help them have a great time. The more fun, the more great experience your guests have, the more they want to come back and stay with you, or tell your friends to come back and stay with you, and even if they're coming back to the area, they want to stay specifically with you because you were hands down the greatest people they've ever worked with. That's the impression you really want to have with guest experience. I always like to mention, as part of that, is protecting their investment. If you are not offering travel insurance, you need to be offering it. If you are offering it, there is, we mentioned all the different Inhabit stack. Rental Guardian has a cancel for any reason. That is just tremendous. That's the biggest way you can make a horrible experience for a guest, is by them not having an insurance, and something like a storm or a disaster or even a health emergency on their end, taking away their trip, and now they've spent that money and they can't get it back because of policies and other things. Insurance is hugely valuable, very important. You actually can even get into some other things there. So if you've not looked at Rental Guardian or some of the services there, that's very important. And then finally, it gets down into, all those extra things you can do, like, renting bikes, linens, kayaks. Early check-ins are a huge one. I always like to encourage people on, because early check-ins, you don't have a cost of service of doing that. It's just ordering your housekeeping schedule in the right order. So you can charge a guest $150 to check into their house early. And all you have to do is make sure that's the first house you're cleaning on that turn day, so that they can get into that house early instead of waiting to the end of the day. That's easy. That's simple. I think there's some things coming that Katrina might mention that, make that easier to manage. Startup packets, like with, gifts and baskets and everything else that you can put in there, like soaps and paper towels and stuff like that, is really great. Those are all big things. And that's what people want. I mean, I think it goes back to a lot what Matt was talking about with the payment wallets and everything else. It's just making it seamless and easy and what they're comfortable with. That's a great guest experience. Being able to pay with that wallet, that was so easy, so all three valuable strategies. I think a lot you can dive into it. If you've got questions on any of those, or what you might look at doing, obviously reach out to Sarah or any of us. So.
Thank you, Tim. And I love the guest experience too. I know as a guest, it makes it or break it for me, whatever that experience is, the ease of being able to communicate or get into the actual property. So one thing I would like to announce is that Tim talked about the importance of early check-in and late checkout, and that is a new feature coming to Ignite. So we will have more information of that, but that is coming soon. So I'm really excited to be able to help you enhance your guest experience. The two main things that I want to talk to you about is going to be the ability to create these product offerings to enhance your guest experience on your Ignite system. So what we're seeing in this graphic is going to be the checkout page on our demo Live Res Ignite website. And we can see that over here to the right, highlighted in red, are going to be product offerings. So once you have your vendors in your system, it is going to allow you to actually offer products that they have. So we have firewood, maybe it's a snow rental, maybe you're doing grocery delivery. Either way, this is going to be an upsell where you can put extra money on there to get some kind of revenue profit. Here in blue, you're going to see additional extras. That's where you're going to put those pet fees in. That's going to be where you're going to put those mid-stay cleans. Is there a hot tub fee for heat? Whatever that may be, you can do that so your guests can actually add those on and are like, I didn't know that I could bring a pet with me. I see a pet fee right here. Let me go ahead and add that on. So that's going to be ways for you to easily get additional revenue in your Ignite system, and it's very easy to set up. Right. So now we're going to open, I know we're a little bit over time, but we're going to open the floor for questions. Anybody who joined a little bit late, the chat's disabled, but you can go to the Q&A and post your questions there for anyone here on the panel. If you don't see that Q&A button, you can click the More button, and then you can go ahead and put in the Q&A. And we did get a question that came through from Bill. Is there any advice on gaining market share?
I would assume that's like looking for, like, how do you find owners and everything else. I say a lot of that is looking at what units. I mean, you should have a good idea with your market if you're doing revenue management and everything else, what units are out there. You may have certain ones you're targeting, certain areas. a lot of times there are open records like, tax records or looking at things. Sometimes even as simple as direct mailings and offering, different people are all good strategies. Maybe kind of building your own inventory. I think there are a few tools out there that can help you try to look at some of that stuff. I've not worked with them and I don't know how reliable they are.
We had a question on when digital wallets will be available with Limbrook through Ignite. We do have this live with a few partners now. We have been working on it the past year. We're trying to have it to general release to everybody on Ignite, at some point in 2025. I don't have a set date yet because there's a lot of moving parts to getting wallets installed from the website providers, from the PMS, how to handle the transactions. It's not a small build, but we plan to keep this whole group posted on timelines on when both PMS and website vendors each get access to it. It's not just going to be, we're trying to work with every website vendor in the industry as well. We can be posted on that.
I saw Bill's follow-up question. I think those were kind of some of the tools. The one other thing I did just think of as he posted that is looking at the Airbnbs and the Verbos and stuff in your market that are just self-managed. Those are sometimes the prime opportunity of people that they think they're doing it right. And it's a great way to target those and say, look, we can help you make just as much money with not the same amount of work, with a lot less work. And sometimes it's a really easy target for those. They jumped in because they wanted to take advantage of the market, and they're realizing it's a lot more. So I think that's another good market is to look for those.
And Bill had also asked about Vintori or other similar. I would love to connect with you personally afterwards, just so we can kind of talk about different integrations, what's offered. And there are some things that are in the works. And if they're not, we're always looking for different suggestions. So I'll be sure to send you an email after this, Bill. And if anyone else has specific integration questions, whether you're on V1 or Ignite, let's definitely connect to go a little bit further to see what your options would be, of course.
Mark had asked about a reporting system. That is something with Ignite. You get LSI Insights, a basic, and you can kind of see your occupancy. You can compare it against the market. You can see it year over year. You can see some of that reporting there. I believe there may be some inside of Ignite also that does that. And then there's a premium version of LSI Insights you can get into that will dive a lot deeper, like into pickup reports and unit leaderboards. And if you're really interested in that, there's a couple of webinars that will run every so often for LSI Insights and to see that. And I think it's part of the onboarding process too with Ignite if you're coming on.
And we do have an anonymous question stating that with V1, a pet-friendly property, assume the guest was bringing a pet and added the fee. The guest would have to remove it at checkout. Having them added on their end is often missed by the guest. In Ignite, that is resolved. There is only going to be a pet fee added if a pet fee is selected for a pet-friendly property. It's not going to assume. So that has been resolved within the new version of LiveRes. Sarah, could you contact Mark Smith as well for the same thing? Perfect.
We have a couple of payment questions coming in from Corey. Corey, payments are complicated. I'd love to talk with you one-on-one and look at your scenario you have on Stripe right now. But the question was they have a reserve going on with Stripe. What happens there is Stripe holds a percentage of funds without looking at check-in dates, without looking at anything like that. It really kind of breaks your trust accounting. No, we don't do reserves. We've got two models, one where we pay at time of booking, and then one where we kind of act like Airbnb for the hosts that don't have much experience with credit cards and pay them at check-in. But we don't do reserves. Reserves don't look at check-in dates. Reserves don't look at modifications. They don't look at any of that data. They just hold the money indefinitely for a certain period of time, and that breaks trust accounting. We don't believe in that. All of our risk strategies are focused around the vacation rental model and all around keeping you trust compliant and all around making sure you don't break trust. So I hope that answers your question, Corey, and I'm happy to look into your specific scenario.